Following U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, President Trump indicated that he is open to the idea of regime change in Iran. However, many members of his cabinet have since clarified that this is not the goal of the strikes. Still, is regime change in Iran possible? And what are the likeliest results from these strikes? May we see escalation, as we've seen earlier today? We're here to discuss this and more. Congressman Pat Harrigan, who serves on the House Armed Services Committee. He also serves as a member of the U.S. served as a member of the U.S. military, deployed as platoon leader in Afghanistan. He represents the 10th Congressional District of North Carolina. Congressman Harrigan, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks so much for joining us.
Tony, always great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So your response to the weekend strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities?
I'd say, wow, what a turn of events, right? I mean, a week and a half ago, we thought Iran was going to come to a nuclear deal. They obviously had no intention of doing that. President Trump gives an ultimatum after Israel decides to come in and attack and kind of shift the thought paradigm of Iranian leadership. They just completely push that off to the side, don't take any single diplomatic off-ramp, and then President Trump makes the bold move over the weekend of deciding to just remove their nuclear chip from the table and completely change the nature of the discussions. Obviously, Iran retaliated, but that retaliation was very much scripted, as I think we all know at this point. And now they are looking at taking the diplomatic off-ramp. America's just in an incredibly strong position right now. Israel's in a strong position. Iran is obviously in a very weak position. Putin's got his head on his desk, and Xi's probably got his hands up, wondering what on earth he can possibly do. But right now, this is a huge win in the direction of the good guys, and that's exactly what we needed in this country.
You mentioned a diplomatic off-ramp. What's that look like?
Well, I think Iran said that they want to come to the table today, and why wouldn't they? They have no other cards that they can possibly hold here other than just get completely blown into oblivion by Israel, picked apart and systematically taken out of power. And that's fundamentally what Israel has the capability to do. That's what they've been doing over the last week and a half. At this point, the Iranian regime is looking at the strengths that they have to bring to the negotiating table, and they really don't have any. And so I think they're looking at an existential crisis with their continued existence in power, or they're gonna fall on their sword and die on the hill. And I don't think that they're going to want to do that. And so I imagine that Iran and the negotiations that will play out over the next several weeks should be fruitful for our side.
In that it'll be fruitful for them, and I think in that it could spare their regime, I think, a little more time, and we could see the toppling of that regime, could we not?
It's very possible. I mean, the terms regime change have been thrown around over the last week and a half. But I will tell you, there's two different types of regime change. There's one that I'd be completely for, and there's one that I'm 100% totally against. The type that comes from an internal upwelling within a population that says, we're done with these guys. The last 50 years of sponsoring terrorism and oppression and, being behind this incredibly militant form of Islam, we're done with that. Obviously, that would be fantastic. But the other type of regime change, where we effectuate that regime change, if we have not learned anything from the last 25 years of the global war on terror, the color revolutions that we've sponsored, any of the interventions that we've had in the Middle East, is that forced regime change just does not work. And oftentimes the devil that we don't know ends up being a lot worse than the devil that we do know. And so keeping a very narrowly tailored focus on what our key strategic objectives are with respect to Iran is absolutely key and paramount. President Trump has kept that in focus from the very first day that this kicked off, going all the way back to before, when he gave Iran 60 days to come to the table and make a deal. And I expect that he'll continue to keep it in focus. He will absolutely put America first, and we're going to start seeing the benefits of that absolutely fantastic decision making that our president has and leadership that our president has shown.
Pat, I would agree with you. I think that's well stated. An internal uprising that would replace that regime has staying power, and it's more likely to bring in something that's reflective of the people. And it has to be ripe. I think we may be at that point. It's different than what we've seen. Even in Syria, that regime change was a little more forced from the outside. I think we could see something from the inside. But I want to ask you this question, Congressman. You mentioned Putin, you mentioned Xi. Russia reaching out, having conversations with Iran, could they play a factor in the resolution here or whatever the outcome may be?
I personally never took seriously Putin's offer to help negotiate some sort of de-escalation between Iran and Israel and the United States. I don't think that that was ever real. I think Putin and Xi very much have their hands up in the air right now. This is a five-alarm fire for them. They are witnessing the strategic weakness of one of their greatest allies in the new axis of evil. And so, no, this is a significant emotional event for both Russia and China. It significantly complicates their desire to perpetuate chaos around the globe that ultimately degrades everything that we believe and stand for in the West. And this is not a good development for them, which means it's a great development for us.
You didn't mention Kim Jong-un, leader of North Korea. He's got to be considering his moves at this point, does he not?
Well, he seems to move as part of a bloc, and I think very much if he's paying attention, he finds himself in a very similar position to Iran, isolated, held out to dry. I mean, really, where was Russia and China when Iran needed them most? They weren't there. And I think that's very telling about what type of alliance is on the other side of our ally base. It is a fractured one. It is one that is regionally capable, but not globally capable. And I think that these would be wise notes for Kim Jong-un to take as he decides what his next steps are moving forward.
Let's pivot now. Former special forces, you fought these terrorists on foreign soil. There's concern, alarms being raised by Homeland Security that during the Biden administration, at least 1,500 were apprehended at the border, Iranians trying to come into the country. We don't know how many got through undetected, but half of those 1,500 were released into the country. Is there concern of potentially Iranian terrorist cells operating in the U.S.?
Yes, there's absolute concern. And I think that you've got to look not just at the known Iranians that came across the border. You have to look at all the known gotaways that occurred during the Biden administration. You got to understand there was 1.5 million known gotaways. That's the government number. Some estimates say that number really should be more like 2 million. But let me put this into perspective for you. During President Biden's tenure, we had a wide open southern border policy. That means if you showed up at a port of entry and you wanted to claim economic asylum, you wanted to claim political asylum, whatever you wanted, you were going to get released into this country. So think about what it means when the Border Patrol chases you down, not at a known port of entry, and you are actively running away from them when you know that if you get apprehended by them, you're just going to get released into the United States of America. Put that into perspective. What does it mean that to the intent of those 1.5 to 2 million individuals that are running around our country right now? They are absolutely up to no good. How many of them are affiliated with Iran or any of their proxies is an unknown number. It is a huge strategic risk for the United States of America right now, which is why President Trump's policies of getting illegal aliens out of this country is so important.
Pat, we just have about a minute left. Let me just tell me if I'm right or wrong. When we see how quickly over the last year that Iran has basically their bluster has been, the curtain has been pulled back on their capabilities. I would say their terrorist activity is more of a threat than what we've seen them in terms of their national security and their capabilities.
I wouldn't disagree on the surface, Tony, but I always think that we should have great respect for the capabilities of our adversaries. One of the worst things that you can do is underestimate the capabilities of your adversaries. And I don't think that we should do that in this point in time. I think that keeps us very level-headed and even keel. It prevents us from getting prideful about the successes that we have had, and it lets us focus on the vulnerabilities that we need to address in order to provide for the safety of the American people.
All right. Pat, thanks so much for joining us. Always great to see you.
Thanks for having me, Tony. Have a good night.